Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today from the Dad Edge, Larry Hagner, number 2. Actually, you've been on the show before. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where do you guys? Where are you coming from?
We are coming in from St. Louis. So.
Oh, really?
We're just Wait,
where do you live?
I live about 45 minutes west of St. Louis.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. I would have invited you out to the Summer Smash thing when we were out there.
We were actually out of town that weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, but we had tickets to go to that. But yeah,
it's the biggest one they've ever done. I think that's what we had. I don't know if you know Goob U2, John Dorsey.
I don't know him. No.
He's. I'll introduce you sometime. He's a good guy for you to probably talk to at some point. But yeah, we had him on the show Wednesday, and he was there too. He's been to a bunch. It's the biggest one he's ever done. First Form's a crazy company.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sal and Andy. Sal's crazy, but he manages it well.
Yes, he does.
Andy is crazy and manages it in public on the show mostly. How would you describe what you do? What's your elevator pitch?
My elevator pitch. I'm an imperfect dad of 4 knucklehead boys, married to an amazing woman, and basically what I do is for the past decade, I've been podcasting, helping dads be better dads, husbands, and fathers. And to be quite honest, I'm usually the first moron and knucklehead in the front of the line learning. So that's what the podcast has really been about, is education and learning. And I've usually been the first one to be able to ask questions.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in sometimes, but also not the best sometimes, because you make a lot of your mistakes in public.
100%.
You know, and people always have something to say about that. But you know, whatever. Yeah, I think that's it's a microcosm of what, I don't even know what you would call it. The phrase self-help is meaningless, I think, right? Because you're getting help from you're getting advice on how to help yourself. That's not self-help. That's help. That's an old George Carlin bit, by the way. I didn't make that up. But whatever you want to call it, this is kind of the pattern. It's like you experience something and learn something, and then you try to, I think there's a natural human instinct to try to pass that on to other people. Like, hey, don't make the mistake I did. And to be able to do it without sounding preachy, and then to be able to do it and be like, oh shit, I got this wrong, and now I've got to come back and talk to thousands of people and correct what I just said, which has happened. I mean, I've done the math, as many shows as we do. If 1% of what I say is stupid, that's about 7 minutes a week of stupid shit. And it's probably more than 1%, to be honest, right? Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff that you have to deal with at some point or another because you say dumb shit. How do you manage, I guess, what I would say is continuity? Like if you were a fiction author and you had this big world that you had been writing about, when you write the next book, you got to make sure that all the details are correct based on the old stuff. In this field, things change sometimes. Like your personal experience grows, your professional experience, your education grows, and you learn new things, and you want to fold them in. Does it make you feel like, I don't know, like, how do you deliver that message without feeling like you're being hypocritical to your old self? Or like, or if you don't feel that way, how do you address that when somebody brings it up? Because people do that a lot. Sure,
they do. To be honest, I like to just address it head on. So like if you really listen to my podcast, like I don't hold anything back. Like the mistakes I make, the dumbass things I do, the idiotic mistakes that I'll make, and I'll even do them over and over again, you know, like a moron. But at the same time, you know, it's a complete journey and an evolution. Like, so like, I think this might answer your question. So like, I know I'm here talking about this book coming out on September 16th, which is Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. And there's actually kind of something comical about the title itself, and I think this will probably answer your question. So like when I first went to publish this book, the publisher, not married, no kids, and he asked me, he's like, all right, so what's the title of the book? And I said, it's going to be Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. He's like, and he wasn't married, no kids. And he's like, that sounds a little long. He goes, why not just call it Legendary Fatherhood? And I just like smiled and I said, man, I said, you're obviously not a dad. I said, because there really is no such thing as legendary fatherhood. There's only the pursuit of it. There's only the learning of it, the journey of it. And I'll tell you, man, after 4 boys, you know, and I've made all the rookie mistakes. I have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old. I also have an 11 and a 9-year-old. There are some mistakes I avoided with the younger 2 that I, you know, learned from the other 2. There are some mistakes that I've repeated. But I will tell you, like, every single season has a nuance to fatherhood and marriage. Like right now, I mean, the season we're in right now, I mean, I started this podcast, my oldest was 9, he's now 19. So suddenly we're now raising an adult child. Like, that's different. So I don't know much about hypocrisy about it, but I can tell you it's always changing and it's always evolving. And even if we've learned a lesson once, that doesn't immune us from sometimes making the same mistake again, you know, before we learn.
Yeah, sure. What do you, if you had to, the reason I'm curious about this is because a lot of our audience came from the military or police or are still there. And we've raised quite a few adult childs of our own, even children rather, even people that, like myself, I haven't had kids, but I've raised some 17 to 19-year-olds, and it's quite a bit. It's easier in a way because you can communicate. Like there are no communication barriers between 2 adults really, but harder in a way because there's no real, I don't believe in tabula rasa, but there's no slate that you've got to unpack a lot of shit at that age, right? I mean, obviously this isn't the case for you because you've been with the kid his whole life, but what would you say is different about the way that you interact with 9-year-old son versus 19-year-old son?
Yeah, it's well, the interesting thing is this though too, the needs of a kid, whether they're a boy or girl, whether they're 19 or 9, it's really interesting. The needs of a kid are the same. So every single kid needs to feel seen, heard, and safe. Doesn't matter if they're a boy or girl. It doesn't matter if they're 19 or 9. Those are the things that they do need. Now, obviously, like the conversations that I'm having with my 19-year-old, they're quite a bit different than I'm having with my 9-year-old. And even the conversations I'm having with my 11-year-old are different than my 9-year-old. But, you know, I would say the 19-year-old and even my 17-year-old, it's, yes, we're still raising them, but I would say it's more conversations around guidance, leadership, and guardrails. You know, it's like that type of stuff.
Well, you go from like there's a transition at some point where you go from building guardrails for the kids to teaching them to build their own guardrails in life, which is something that all of us, no matter what our age is, you know, I'd like. This is kind of a silly example. One thing I tell people is if you don't eat junk food, don't buy it. That is the easiest way to not do it. Is when you wake up at midnight and you're like, hey, I'm hungry. It's like, well, there's no garbage there to eat. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess these days you could just Uber Eats it, but every barrier you put between you and a bad decision is a good thing typically.
Yeah.
But that's the transition, right? You go from enforcing to advising, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You go from advising to, I mean, like the interesting thing about it too is you realize quite frankly, like how little control over your kids you actually have. Meaning in actuality, like if my kid wanted to go grab my firearm and go shoot up the neighborhood, you know, without me being home, I don't have a lot of control over that. Like he could go out and do it. However, what I do have is influence. But one thing I've learned about doing this mission, this movement, is that, and I love this quote and I love this statement because I know it rings true and it's very true. And without connection, I have no influence. So if I have no connection to my kids, like they're not really going to listen to probably a word that I say. But if I have a connection to them, then I can influence and I can encourage, I can inspire, I can do all these different things to basically bend their ear if I otherwise didn't. Yeah,
there's always some, like I wouldn't call it relaxation necessarily, but the faith that you have in a thing, there's a direct correlation between the amount of effort you put into it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like if you spend 10 minutes making a chair versus 10 hours making a chair, you're going to get wildly different products. And the same thing is true for anything in your life, your relationship, your work, the thing that you love. It may not be your work, maybe something else, you know? And again, back to back to the using your personal experience to guide what you give back to the world. It isn't just about social and philosophical stuff. Sometimes it's business. Like, it was a pain in the ass for me to accomplish this thing, so I made a widget that makes it easier. And other people agreed, and now I've got a business. That's literally what a business is. You know what I mean? So it's interesting how these principles kind of are the same no matter where you go. You take, to me, it goes back to to like property rights with Locke and even Hobbes to some degree, where the natural order is you apply your labor to the earth, you extract value from that, and you can turn that value into wealth for yourself, right? In the same way, you apply your labor to the social and philosophical world, you extract value from that, and you share that value, make your family better, make your own life better, whatever, right? I think that's a really important way to look at things, because it puts the impetus on you, like in Adlerian terms, that is your work to do, right? It's your work not to spend the next 40 years healing in a fucking retreat in the woods, but to get healed so you can be a net benefit to those people around you. Yeah. I think that's something, you know, I've got to ask you about this too, because you deal with some of this stuff. We went from completely ignoring all of our problems, stuffing them down until we get an ulcer or a heart attack, to now I've got to go on this healing journey. It's like, can we not just be reasonable people at all, ever? What the fuck, man? It's like just bouncing back from one extreme to another. It's like, no, just like relax. You know, you are not your demons. You know, just like you're not the calluses on the bottom of your fucking feet. That's just something that exists.
That's a good analogy, actually. I like that. But yeah, I mean, I think people are very extreme. I think men can be really extreme, you know, when it comes to some of the things that we do or don't do. You know, I always say that, you know, if we can't go to the gym for 2 hours, we won't go. If we can't, you know, if we're not going to drive 90 miles an hour down the highway, we won't leave the garage, you know, things like that. But yeah, we're pretty extreme beings when it comes to that.
Yeah, you don't want to be, it can be hard to describe sometime. I think you do a really good job of it, but men should be very in touch with their emotions, but they should not be emotional, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
Maybe a better way to say it is that men should respond and not react. And there's studies that show that we're kind of biologically programmed for that stuff. You ask a woman a question, and she will typically answer with the answer that she actually wants to give within 5 to 15 seconds or something like that. For a man, sometimes it can take up to 1 full minute of thought to connect those things together and be like, yes, this is what I think. For some reason. I don't know why it works that way. I'm sure there's some evolutionary reason for it, and I'm sure there's some physiological explanation for why specifically it happens that way, but that is the way it happens. And if you consider that, this is intellectual stuff, right? This is just asking me a question about something that happened the other day or how I feel about this subject. What's happening in your brain when these same things are going off, but it's an emotional stimulus, right?
I think there's a lot of things that, so I think, you know, you're right. We kind of come from I just turned 50. So like my generation, like I grew up, my stepdad was military, and it was like, you know, stop crying, you know, only babies cry, you know, that kind of thing. Like it was literally like these lessons in like, don't feel anything except for these feelings over here. And if there's these feelings, you know, just stuff them down. But when it comes to, so I think that there's a lot of guys out there, to be honest, like to answer your question, and this is not a dig on guys. This is not to insult guys, because I was there too. But I think we were kind of grown up, like a lot of our childhoods were not the most robust emotional IQ. Like we didn't really learn what emotions meant. In fact, I think we were probably taught at a young age, emotions are either bad or they're good, right? And one of my most favorite podcast guests has been Gary John Bishop. You probably know who he is, right? Yeah. He had this quote when he came. He's been on my podcast 6 times because every time he writes a book, he comes on the show. But he commented on this and he said, emotions are neither bad nor good. They just are. Mm-hmm. They're neither bad nor good. They just are. But I agree with you. I think men need to be emotionally aware of what they're feeling. And I think even the importance of like, well, why am I feeling that way? Yeah. And then the next question is, what do I then do about it? Right. Like, how do I process through this? And I think that you're right. There's a lot of us that we don't have that emotional IQ, so we tend to get really, really reactive. Yeah. Like, so for instance, like, let me give you an example. Like, when I've explained this on other podcasts or even to my clients, it makes sense to them. But let's take a regular guy who's married with a couple kids, and his kids are doing stuff to piss him off, right? So he gets pissed, right? He gets angry, right? And then he reacts. But the problem with that is that what's actually going on for that man is whatever his kids are doing. So like there's this external thing that's happening. So externally, his kids are pissing him off. But internally, how he's responding is, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't lose my patience. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like, fatherhood should come easy to me. So like, it's not only the external thing that's challenging us, but it's our internal critic in us that's basically bashing us for even having the emotion that we do. So then we get even more furious and we react even more. And sometimes we go the other direction where we just completely and totally shut down. Because it's like, well, if I just don't deal with it or I don't feel it, maybe it'll just go away with time. And you know as well as I do that that doesn't do too well. So yeah, I think the answer to that is really, men understanding their emotions better, but then knowing why am I feeling this way, but also how do I then respond versus react, right?
Yeah, there's it's why you really shouldn't and again, this goes back to Adler, in my opinion. Adler, his work was the foundation for cognitive behavioral therapy, by the way. Not Freud, who's just like, your mom's to blame, you should hate her for the rest of your life, or whatever the fuck he said. It's mostly just cocaine fueled, I think, but not that I got a problem with that. When you have to like, whenever somebody reaches out to me for the first time, mostly it's been when someone close to them has died and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is sit in that grief for a while and feel every single goddamn part of it. Because anything you don't feel right now, you're going to feel it forever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And part of that as well is like, if you're planning on having a big meal for dinner, you should have something to eat for breakfast. Otherwise, your stomach's going to be small, right? And it sounds stupid, but that's kind of how it works. And if your emotional limits are really low, especially as a man, they fill up extremely quickly, right? You go from 0 to 10 way too fast. But you haven't processed anything. Your brain hasn't taken that 30 to 60 seconds or whatever it is for you personally that it needs to make those connections, those patterns in your brain, are because of who we are historically. There are certain things, rage, anger, and depression, that happen very quickly for us, probably a lot more quickly than it does for women, because we got to get tuned up to 11 to fucking fight somebody. The problem is on the other end of rage and anger is turning it inward into depression, right? So that happens quickly as well as a byproduct. So this is something that's evolutionary for us. It's not because you're broken. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's just the way you're designed. So if you know that, then you've got to fucking master yourself. That should be the goal, right? I mean, I think anger and rage are very important tools for me. I've been at war. They were very important over there. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you can't control them, you're driving a Ferrari without a fucking steering wheel. And that is not good for you or anybody around you. You know what I mean? Very true. And you're not a fucking value add either. Like your strength, excuse me, as a man is, it is incumbent upon you to be in control of it. Otherwise, you won't feel control, and then comes the shame, as you were mentioning before, which can, again, yeah, you're 100% right. It turns you in one of two directions. Even angrier, because you're in a low IQ state, or shame and depression comes next. And this is what we found with all of our studies on veteran suicide stuff and cop suicide and firefighters and all these other people that are really susceptible to this stuff. There is They hang on by a thread, and then there's a 5 to 15 minute crash out where they just can't, like the pain outweighs the fucking future, and they fucking kill themselves. You know what I mean? This is the same thing happening on opposite ends of the spectrum. So if we can control this over here, we never get over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I try to tell people. Your anger is, your depression is a symptom of your anger most of the time. And if you're not dealing with the anger part, we like to try to treat the depression part. Unfortunately, we gave a lot of pats on the back to dudes coming back from war, and we should have been giving them like a job, a purpose, a job to do, like, and then a call to action. You got to control this. This is on you to control this, right? Life's not going to get any easier. You're going to have to get stronger. It's just the way it is. And we fucked up big time. And a lot of people killed themselves because of it, frankly. And a lot of us fell into that trap because we didn't know any better. But I'm telling you, that's how it is. I've had over 24 friends kill themselves now. Well, I've lost double the amount of people in civilian life than I did in war. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is simple, right? Like there are clear steps that you can take to deal with this stuff. And a lot of it comes from I don't want to sound reductive or like and what I'm definitely not saying is just suck it up and go on about your life. But the negative emotions you're feeling are going to be, you're going to learn to control them around the people that you care about, because that's the guardrail. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't want to be a dick to this person.
Right.
So I've got to be intentional. I like my wife or girlfriend or children or whomever, my friends, my coworkers, I have to allow myself to get into that situation and then manage myself in that situation. Not shut it down, but manage it. Feel it. Sit there like, hey, I need a minute. Feel it. All right, cool. Here's why I was just pissed off. And say it out loud. Say exactly why you were just angry with them, to them. If they get offended, maybe they do. But most of the time I found in my professional and personal relationships that if you handle it that way, it tends to deepen the bond and not go the other way.
I agree. I think when you converse with somebody like that, even in anger, right, you're creating still a safe place to have a conversation, right? Like even if you're like pissed at your kids, you know, like for doing something, if they have an emotional regulated father, kind of like actually like how you just did it, like, hey, let me think about this for a second. All right, I'm pissed off and here's why, right? It's just in that calm sense of the way versus like throwing shit around, going absolutely berserk, yelling, screaming, that kind of thing, hitting. I mean, like, truth be told, I mean, like, shit, man, I started Dad Edge because I lost my patience with my 4-year-old who's now 17. You know, I spanked him, and that was the night I started doing what I'm doing. And, you know, that was 13 years ago. So like a fit of rage actually started doing what I'm doing. But you're right. You know, one interesting thing that you said about sitting in it, I want to share something with you if you're cool with it. You know Ryan Mickler. So do I.
Good friend.
Yeah, Ryan and I have been friends for 10 years. We ran an event back in May called The Forge. And it was funny, man. It was 3 days long. We did all kinds of stuff. We did we did a lot of physicality stuff with the guys who were there. We did a lot of speakers. But we did jiu-jitsu, all kinds of stuff. But me and Ryan, we played tug of war. That was one of the things we did. And me and Mickler decided to go one-on-one. And 3 months ago, I ruptured my patella tendon. I completely busted my knee. It just severed the tendon right in half. The kneecap rolled up.
What were you doing?
So I slipped in mud. Like we were playing tug of war, and I went to pull, and because where we had the event, the weather was terrible for 3 days. So it was just a mud pit, and bottom half of my leg went one way, top half went the other, tore. So anyway, a few weeks later, we had decided as a family, all 4 of my boys, my wife, we were going to do this 12-day adventure starting in southern Utah. A ton of national parks, so Zion, Bryce Canyon, Antler, Antelope Canyon, all these places were tons of hiking outdoors, and all this stuff. And I had decided, because dude, I was braced from hip to ankle. I was, you know, I had just gotten out of surgery 2 weeks before this. I was on crutches. I was like, there's no Mount Zion National Park for me. There's no Bryce Canyon for me to hike to. So I literally on June 2nd, I watched my family, my entire family. I've never been without my family, or they've never been on vacation without me for 12 days. And I've never been at home by myself in the past 20 years for 12 straight days, knowing that my family is going to go out and have this adventure. And here's the interesting thing. I don't drink. I don't watch porn. I don't masturbate. I don't do any of that stuff. Like, I don't have vices. Like, my one vice is probably fitness. And I knew as my family drove off that day, I was like, man, I could crack a beer every night, drink every night if I want to get hammered, right? I can go down the street and buy all kinds of gummies and weed if I want to, just smoke up or eat up whatever I want. I could watch porn on the big screen and, have a good old time with myself every day of the week if I wanted to. And I had decided, I had made a very distinct decision. None of that will happen. In fact, I know that this 12 days, quite frankly, is going to be really shitty, really shitty. And I'm going to face some really dark shit. And my wife is in studio with me. Please don't take offense to this. But like, I knew my wife was going to be posting like these incredible photos of their adventure online on Facebook. And every day I had to see those photos. And dude, it just fucked with my head. First of all, I was depressed because I was injured. I was depressed because I couldn't do anything. I'm like hobbling around my house. My family's having this awesome adventure. And there were times where I was tempted to just like, I just don't want to feel these feelings. I don't want to feel this anger. I don't want to feel this sadness. I don't want to feel this depression. I don't want to feel this physical pain. And I was so tempted to give into those vices, and I didn't do it once. But I'll tell you, facing it without any type of vice or without any type of comfort, just having to like literally regulate your own emotions. It was hard. It was not easy. It sucked. But the Friday that they came home, I was just like, I felt like I had gone through like just a small crucible, right? Nothing huge or, nothing compared to even what you've been through, at war. But like, it was a challenge for sure. But I felt like I came out of that challenge knowing myself better, feeling more emotionally regulated than I did even before, knowing that I could face those things head on and not have to dive into a vice. It was hard in the moment, but when it was all said and done, man, I felt so much stronger after that 12 days, but it was not easy facing all that crap.
This episode is brought to you by our title sponsor, Omaha Steaks. From handcrafted steaks to family grilling favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience for all of your 4th of July grilling plans. Enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and so much more. And now, during their 4th of July sale, you get 50% off site-wide. Holy crap, that's a good deal. At omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $45 off with the promo code CITIZEN at checkout. This is a very American company, folks. They've been around since 1917, America's original butcher. Great meat of all sorts, whatever you can think of, they got it over there. And now they're giving you this crazy deal. It's 50% off site-wide plus $45 off with the promo code CITIZEN at checkout. There's nothing quite like an all-American feeling. 4th of July cookout. You know what I mean? You got to celebrate being American because we are the best country in the world. It's the perfect time to stock up and celebrate with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef. More marbling for exceptional flavor, and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Plus, don't forget about all new smash burgers. They're built for the grill. 6 minutes from the freezer to the grill. Perfect. I made a bunch last week, and it's just some of the best in the world. So once again, get fired up for the 4th of July with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale, and add an extra $45 off with the promo code CITIZEN at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $45 off with the promo code CITIZEN at checkout. See site for details. This episode is also brought to you by First Form, firstform.com/Drinking Bros, the best protein in the business. Protein is the building block of life, folks. I say it all the time. You replace every cell in your body over the course of 2 to 10 years, depending on how active you are, how much you eat, and how clean you eat. And if you're replacing it with garbage, you're going to be garbage. So make sure you're eating the best possible protein you can and supplementing with First Form. Don't forget about the micro factors. It's just a little simple pack open it up, dump it in your mouth hole, and feel better. You know, they've got the liver detox, which is a great thing for people that like to drink or people who, just want to be healthier. And then they have all these other supplements. They've got great pre-workouts. They've got great protein in all the flavors. And then, of course, for people on the go like us, they have exceptional meat sticks, protein sticks, and a variety of different flavors. And then the level 1 protein bars in a variety of flavors as well. That we talk about this stuff all the time. They're great. So go to firstform.com/drinkingbros. It's the best company in the world. You've seen us with Andy. You've seen the company. We love these guys. It's a very American company. So go support them and support us. Firstform.com/drinkingbros. That's 1stphorm.com/drinkingbros. Yeah. Yeah, another big part of that is understanding that people, like most of the time, maybe your close people can sense when something's off with you.
Oh, yeah, for
right?
sure.
But for the most part, even they, in a situation like that, I don't know if you guys communicated about that beforehand or anything. But
yeah, we did.
Yeah, so like for a lot of people, wife comes back, she has no idea that you've been in it.
Right,
for some amount of time. She's coming off maybe vacation high, but after 12 days, more likely, I need to get the fuck home and take a nap, right? That's rough.
Yeah.
Being on anything over like 7 to 8 days for me, I can't do it. But anyways, getting your feelings hurt because of that, because somebody isn't automatically sensitive to that or isn't matching your emotion, especially if they're tired or they're happy from what they just did. You want them to come fucking sit with you and your emotion. That's an unreasonable expectation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a mistake to feel that way. I mean, it's not a mistake to feel that way because you feel how you feel. It's a mistake to dwell on that because a big part of life is managing your expectations, right? And I think one of the best things you can do about managing your emotions, whether it's any of the base emotions, anger, greed, lust, whatever it is to give it context, right? Like, I'm a married man. That woman over there looks nice. Okay. That's it. That's an observation. That doesn't have to live in my brain any longer than that. Right?
Yeah.
And you're responsible for that. Mm-hmm. Only you can control that. Only you can prevent forest fires. And then, another part of it is realizing that nothing, and the reason I say that is because fantasy, somebody told me this phrase one time that I really like. Fantasy is like a scrimmage for bad behavior or something like that. Fantasy is like a dress rehearsal for bad behavior, maybe. I don't remember what it was, something like that. Like, you should fantasize about your goals and shit, not about weird stuff. But anyways, realizing that things are never as good or as bad as they seem. And I think giving like things, there are things that are going to make you feel this way or that way. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. You know what I mean? And the process of pause, context will tell you if it's real or not. And if you do it enough, it becomes a habit to do it, right? Mm-hmm. I do this thing called positive reframing by instinct now. And it allows me, the thing that part of it is making me see the world better, I guess, because I'm a little bit of a miser sometimes. But the actual practical effect that I've noticed, and that Candace points out all the time, is that I very frequently, as much shit as I talk all the time, I take people at their best possible meaning a lot, instinctively. Like, well, maybe they meant this, or in this type of situation, this person's going through this, that's why they're behaving that way. And it's because I've done it to myself. I've looked in the mirror and done that to myself a lot. And it doesn't make me any better than anybody else. I just did that. And anybody can do it. It doesn't make, there's no like hierarchy there. You are an individual, and you get to choose how you respond in those situations. Mm-hmm. And you're responsible for it mm-hmm. at the end of the day. And you're going to fuck up too, right? That's another part of managing expectations. If you think you're going to go through life and not make every mistake possible, then you're stupid, because mm-hmm. you're definitely going to make all those mistakes. And a lot of that is going to be in this book, I imagine.
Setting expectations?
No. Fucking up.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I'm sure there is. There's anybody that's watching your shows knows that you've shared a lot about not having a consistent, like, positive father figure around, and also connecting that to, I guess you could call it your ignorance and being a dad later on. That's probably what it is, right? I guess maybe there's a better way of saying it.
In the book, so this might bring some clarity. So in the book, like the book's divided up into 4 parts. It's the drift, which I think probably what you're kind of talking about. There's husband, father, and leader. But I think what you're talking about is the drift. And I'd love to expand on what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think when you talk about like guys screwing up, like kind of like I would say, fatherhood or marriage or whatever else, like I don't think that I don't know many guys out there that are just like, I can't wait to totally screw this up. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot wait to ruin my marriage and like totally, screw up my kids so bad where they need a ton of therapy. But the drift is something that I've been talking about on a lot of podcasts because people have been really, really intrigued by what exactly is that. And the drift is like this really, really sneaky thing of where things aren't right and they are getting screwed up, but you actually kind of don't really realize it and you don't really know it. It's like this sort of slow, sneaky infestation of something that happens to you over time. So when I first started doing this work, I had this mentor of mine who was like, you need an avatar. And this is where I explain the drift. And I'm like, an avatar? Why do I need an avatar? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, you need, when you write books and when you write blogs and when you do podcasts and that kind of thing, you need like to picture somebody that you're speaking to. And I was like, well, I'm pretty much speaking to myself because I'm like the biggest screw up that I know. And they're like, yeah, but you kind of need like somebody else. So like, I was like, well, what do you do when you have an avatar? He's like, you got to give him a name, what's on his mind, what's going on in his life, that kind of thing. So here's how the drift, and I think with the direction you're going in. So my avatar, his name is Lance. He's 38 years old. He's been 38 for 10 years. He hasn't aged in 10 years. So he still has 3 kids under 10. So they haven't aged either. So he's been married to a woman named Kate for 10 years. So he's 38, 3 kids, works. And here's Lance's life. And here's the drift. So Lance goes to a job every day that he doesn't really like. He doesn't hate it, but it's not his dream job. But as he's driving to work, he's like, man, I feel like there's more out here for me. Like there's something I should be doing, but I feel trapped. Right. So like, I got to pay the bills. I got to make Kate feel safe. I got 3 kids under 10. So I just got to keep doing this job. And he kind of feels like he's selling his soul, like as he's doing this job. And throughout his day to day, there's 100 problems, 1,000 problems sometimes that come his way. So by the time he gets home to Kate and the kids, he's like, he feels pretty defeated. He's like, man, I'm already doing something I hate. I got to do it though, in order to keep the lights on, got to keep the family happy. And then he comes home to a marriage that he used to know. He doesn't really know it anymore. So the relationship with his wife, it kind of feels like roommates now. Like they're not really intimate like they used to be. They don't really have that great of a friendship anymore. In fact, most of their conversations are about the kids, about the activities, dinners, chores, bills, that kind of thing. It's like high level stuff, no more deep conversations. The relationship with his kids is not really connected either. He sort of feels like, man, I feel like raising these kids, it feels somewhat like the first day of school every freaking day, and I cannot get my handle around it. Here's the other thing too that you nailed, I think, earlier on in the interview is Lance is not the most emotionally adept person. So he doesn't really understand why he feels the way he does. All he knows is he feels shame and guilt for even feeling these things anyway, which compound the problem anyway, which makes him less patient for his kids, which makes him feel more unfulfilled. Physically, he probably doesn't have the body that he used to. He has probably let himself go a little bit, so he doesn't really feel confident. But here's the kicker. He knows he's screwing up. He knows he's not doing it on purpose. He knows he's leaving a lot on the table as it relates to his marriage and his kids and what he wants to do for a living, but he has no clue how to access what he's leaving on the table. All the while, this is the kicker. Every single person around him is telling him, Lance, this is life, dude. Like, what'd you expect? You've been married for 10 years. You think you're gonna have sex anymore? No. Like, and come on, man, you're worried about your body? Dude, embrace the dad bod. Come on, right? And you're not patient with your kids. They're pains in the asses. They're under 10. And dude, no one likes what they do for a living. No one. So just get used to it. So this is what everyone is telling him. His in-laws, his parents are telling him, stay with the job you have. It's safe. So Lance just kind of feels like he's built this life that he's always dreamed of, but it's not what he's dreamt of. And he's just like, well, I guess this is life. And then he becomes more and more out of touch with his relationships, and that's where the drift really sets in. And this is where somehow, some way, our life as men, it unfolds the way it does, and we're like, how the hell did this even happen, right? And it's not until I think we wake up, and I know we kind of called it self-help before, but I think it's like, how do I go live the life that I truly want? How do I go learn the skills to create the marriage that I want? How do I go learn the skills to create the relationship with my kids that I want, even with myself that I want? Like, how do I go do that? And I think guys are kind of at a standstill of like, I don't know exactly what that first step is.
Yeah, it's like drinking through a fire hose sometimes,
yeah.
Right? Especially when you're in it.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to educate, train, and then prepare for an event. And it's another thing to do it from the inside out, right? I mean, if somebody dropped me into a war zone, handed me a gun, and then said, okay, we're going to figure it out, and be like, all right, this seems like a bad idea,
right?
Doesn't it?
Right.
Obviously, that's an extreme example, but life is pretty extreme in my opinion. This drift sounds like the boiling frog analogy, but in reverse, kind of like you just
exactly what it is.
It starts hot and it just kind of goes lukewarm at some point, and you're like, all right, man, it's not terrible,
right? It's not terrible.
This is not stimulating to me, and it should be, right? I mean, you should like. I think everybody has witnessed this or felt this at some point. You've helped somebody and gotten the biofeedback from that. It feels great. It makes you feel better in every possible way that a human being can, but especially as a man. Or you've taught your kid something new and they finally figure it out. That feels, I enjoy that quite a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
That might be the thing I enjoy the most out of that whole like adult male child relationship. That might be the best.
Yeah.
And I felt it when I was in the Army too, like teaching dudes how to do stuff. Younger guys, I always got some enjoyment out of that, but it doesn't compare to this.
Yeah.
And then, to the other thing about this avatar, that's an interesting way to think about it. What I've always told people is that, nobody goes into something with a goal and no plan. If there's a goal, there's a plan. Mm-hmm. You may not have made a good one, but you've made one to some degree, right? I mean, it's going to start walking in that direction. Well, maybe you should do a little bit more than that. You know what I mean? I've always had the habit of talking to myself. Like if I'm going to, I do a lot of research for this show and the other shows, a lot of reading for it. But I'll have this conversation, I'll have had this conversation in my head 1,000 times before I ever get here. You know what I mean? Just the way my brain works. But one of the things I tell people about themselves is to say out loud to yourself the kind of man you want to be and the kind of life you want to have, right? And then consider what that man might do in this situation. You don't have to make a bullet list or anything like that, but how does man X, or Lance for you, I guess, how does he react in this situation? But then, a week or month down the road, I'm like, shit, how would Lance have prepared for that situation instead of reacting to it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now I've actually grown a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, try to make the decisions he would make. I mean, this is, there's a reason that religion does this. Right? And I'm not trashing religion. What I'm saying is there's a reason they give you an effigy, right? Whether it's, a literal one like Jesus or something else. Like this is the kind of person you need to strive to be, Job. And just giving a couple of Christian examples about Moses, Joshua, Caleb, all these people from the Jewish religion as well. There's like, these are people, here they are, raw and on display. Here are their mistakes, and here's the things they've done well. That's typically how it's communicated, right? Mm-hmm. Not so much in authoritarian stuff like state religions, like communism. You're not going to hear a whole lot of bad stuff about Kim Jong-il, for example.
Right.
Or Stalin, or like that. But you'll hear the full story from somebody who's legitimately trying to get you to be a better person, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's no way to learn without seeing the mistakes. It just doesn't exist. So I wonder, when you're doing this, what's the feedback loop, I guess, from you positing to fictional Lance at all, like the whole family, how they might react. You send the problem into that machine, and what's the output of that? Like, how does it come back to you?
So as far as like Lance 2.0, is that what you're asking? Like if he were to be confronted with a problem, if he were like, what's the question?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like I'm having this issue right now, and I've created this engine that's a problem-solving engine. Like, here's a guy in a situation, here's a way that I can feed problems into that. And basically what you're doing is you've created a system through which to pass problems so you could see what the potential pitfalls are and then how to handle it. Right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what it is.
Sure. Yeah.
So what's that feedback look like now for you that you've been doing this for years?
Man, it's
do you still do it? Do you still like say like, oh, I'm in this place now, so do you have a new Lance that's in your position from like 5 years ago where you're still feeding data into that, or how's that work?
That's a great question. I would say there's always I am Lance, or I was back then, right? Like at 38. I would say now, if I were, I'm Lance 2.0, 10 years later, with different sets of situations that come my way that weren't the same back then. But I will. So like, let me give you an example. Let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. So like when you grew up, could you, when something bad happened, whether maybe you did something dishonest or maybe you got an F or something you weren't proud of, right? How terrified were you, or not terrified were you, to tell your mom or dad?
I wouldn't tell them anything.
Okay. Why?
Because my dad would beat the Christ out of me.
Okay. Yeah. So you and I were,
I mean, he would do it for no reason too, but definitely if there was a reason.
You and I might have had the same dad.
Yeah. Like when I walked in from either school or playing every day, it was 50-50.
Yeah.
If I was going to catch a beating, for something or another, right? So obviously that's a low trust. This is one of the other reasons it's important to understand these dynamics in your own life is because this is what politics is as well, right? Like when you expand this, what you're essentially observing in your childhood that was unstable is a low trust society, and you can see all the negative factors in a low trust society, and then you blow that up to 30,000 feet or 350 million people, and you can understand very clearly why we have some of the problems we have today. But anyways, the answer is I'm definitely getting my ass kicked. Yeah, right. My mom's just gonna sit there and watch and not do shit about it. So here we go.
So you kind of grew up the way we grew up pretty similar, right? Which, you're either, if when you become a dad and that's your background, you're going to become either that or you're going to become probably the opposite of that. One or the other, right? But here's what I can tell you. So like, I love your analogy of like, what does that man do? The man that I want to be, what does that man do in this situation, right? And I love the plan part. And I love the fact that you even said that, you use the military as a comparison of how to get somebody prepared from like civilian to, to a warrior. Right. And I think you even said that might be an extreme comparison. That's a comparison that I use on the podcast all the time is, it's like jujitsu right now is like the biggest thing ever. Right. So like, I love like when I take on one-on-one clients who do jujitsu because they don't understand. They're like, why have I been able to build this incredible business? Why haven't I been able to build this like body or whatever, but I cannot figure out marriage or parenting? And, we'll talk about jujitsu and I'll say, well, do you do tournaments? And I'm thinking of one of my clients right now and they're like, oh yeah, I love tournaments. I'm like, well, how long did you do jujitsu before you did a tournament? He's like, I did jujitsu for a year before I competed. I'm like, okay, well, why didn't you just sign up for a tournament before ever learning? And he looked at me like I had two heads. He's like, why would I do that? And I was like, well, did you learn anything about marriage and parenting before you got married? And he's like, well, no. I was like, well, then you just did a tournament without doing any jiu-jitsu training, right? So it's like having that plan. So like going back to what I was saying, so like, for instance, I grew up in that same situation you did where there was not a lot of safety. In fact, usually if something bad happened, I was like, man, the last people in the world I want to tell is my mom and either the dad who's there or her boyfriend or whatever reckless father figures in the picture at that point. So my main goal with my kids is to be their 3 a.m. call. That is my plan. That is the man that I want to be. Like shit hits the fan. You know, your kid is on the oscillating fan and somebody's dumping feces in it and they're on the other side of it, they call dad. Like I'm the one on speed dial. So it's like, well, how do I put in the reps and how do I put in the planning to be that guy? Yep. Right. So like, for instance, when my kids come to me, and there's a lot of things. I mean, I think you would agree. Our kids are pretty open. In fact, like, man, there are some things that they'll tell us, and I'm
maybe
like,
a little too open. You're like, hey, dude.
I'm like, whoa, dude. Like, I would have like some of the things I hear. I'm like, dang, dude, I would have never said that. But at the same time, my goal is to be that 3 a.m. call. So I need to be that safe haven. Right now, don't get me wrong. There are consequences. There is discipline. Right. There isn't over gentle parenting and, oh, I know you did this and that's okay. But there is safety, right? There is like, hey, I'm really glad you told me that, right? Now let's also talk through it. But I think that in a situation like that, we have opportunities as dads to create like that safe haven, to create like, hey, when things are going really bad, this is actually where you can come land, right? And I think that men need to learn exactly what it is that we're talking about, which I sucked at it, like absolutely sucked at it. I still, to this day, even though I've been doing this work for a decade, I still get in my own way from time to time. But that's one aspect of it. Here's another one though too. And I think this is for the younger dads out there. Like, I think every dad out there can, and again, we're thinking like far along. We're not thinking of the here and now. But when you have little kids, you're not really thinking about teaching them relationship dynamics. You're not really thinking like, how do I teach my kid how to communicate with his future girlfriend or his relationships or anything like that. So like, as young parents, what we'll usually do is we'll put our kids first and we'll just shove the marriage on the back burner big time. Right. And I think that that's irresponsible. I think it's irresponsible because I think as dads, we have this tremendous opportunity to actually put our marriage first and to actually show our kids by example what a functional relationship could look like, what a positive relationship looks like. But I think that you have to create that plan. Like, one of the things that Jess and I have gotten alignment on over, I would say, the past decade is we come first. It's my job to show these kids this is how you love, communicate, respect a woman. Jessica feels the same way. She's like, I set the standard for, you know, how a woman treats a man by how I treat your father. And she treats me with appreciation and respect, and there's zero emasculation or anything like that. And it's really important for her to show that, because when these knucklehead teenage girls come around and they want to treat your kid like shit, our kids won't stand for that. But I think that you have to be playing the long game for that. And you have to, I think, re-engineer some of our thinking for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I say that all the time, but the question, did you learn marriage and parenting before you got involved in it? Well, that is, you're supposed to learn that in childhood.
Yeah,
just as
ideally,
a matter
right?
of course, right? But that hasn't been the case for a lot of us, unfortunately.
Yeah, most of us,
everything that little boy learns about how he's supposed to treat people is from how dad treats mom, for the most part. Right? Not how dad treats him.
Right.
It's how dad treats mom.
Yeah.
And that's something that is kind of leads into the next question that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the categories of husband, father, leader, and are they in that order for a reason? Yeah.
For exactly that reason. I mean, obviously leader is really, really, really important, but I actually put leader in the back because I wanted that to be the last thing that people read. Because I think that's one of the things that, I think men identify, if they're married, as a husband, right? If they're a dad, they identify as a dad. But I think the leadership aspect is something for a lot of us to it's tough for us to get our arms wrapped around. So I wanted men to read that last.
Why is it tough to get your arms around that idea?
I think a lot of us don't have leadership skills. We're just never taught that growing up. We're taught to be really, really good followers. I think the school system even puts us in great situations to be followers. But I don't think there's a lot of really young men out there that know how to lead. And I think that that's something that we have a tremendous opportunity to learn.
Yeah, I think the main reason for that is that there are no rites of passage for young men anymore, because If you're going to a bar mitzvah, or in Catholicism, if you're going to your confirmation, you've got a sponsor in both of those things. An older kid sometimes, or an adult friend of the family is going to be your sponsor, maybe your uncle or older cousin or something like that. And they're going to walk you through this process. And you're going to get to see in real time as, I guess, entering adulthood. I mean, it's young. It's like 12 to 13 time frame for the most part, but sort of entering adulthood at a time when you're actually capable of managing your somatic system to some degree. Your brain's not fully formed, obviously, yet, but you're getting there. You're learning some stuff. And you get to see through your own experience somebody lead you, right? And now I think that adds a lot of confidence for a young man, because now I can do what he just did.
Yeah.
This is my dipshit cousin, Jerry. I could do that for sure, right? But Jerry's done a good job. He's done what a man is meant to do. And it's like, it isn't rocket science. There's just like a couple things. You got to be present, intentional, and emotionally modulated, and you can lead people anywhere pretty much,
agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, seeing somebody else do that isn't your parent and do it for you specifically is something that we've completely lost in this society. Mm-hmm. It went the way, like religion went downhill. It's making a bit of a comeback now. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. A lot of it is reactionary stuff. So hopefully it levels itself out. I like when younger people get involved in that with structure and organization, because especially when it comes to religion and philosophy, because while they are a little bit more susceptible to bad ideas, the process of trying to understand your place in the universe is really important for people, I think. That's why I studied religion when I was younger. I'm not particularly religious myself, but I studied it quite a bit. Only for that reason, to like understand, okay, what is it I'm supposed to be accomplishing here? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's because it's not me. It's not for me. Can't be. I see communities of animals. I see ants. I see the walls we built. We didn't get together and build these walls for me. A lot of people got this main character syndrome stuff now. But I promise you, life is not about you. So find out what it is. That's a big part of it. But again, we've stripped a lot of this stuff. I don't know. Some of it's probably incompetence. Some of it is circumstantial. Some of it is intentional. It is intentional that we don't teach civics in high school anymore. In my opinion, that's intentional. How could it not be? There's a list of things you can choose from, and amongst them should be that for sure, because every one of those graduates is going to go vote. So what the fuck are you doing? Not teaching them. They're going to pay taxes and vote. Yeah. Some of them won't vote. Every one of them is going to pay taxes or go to jail, right? So we don't do any of that anymore, and we don't have these rites of passage. And on the other end of it, there's a extreme cases where masculinity is demonized and stuff like that. But I think the bigger part of it is just because none of that stuff would be effective if these other institutions were effective. If a kid is 13, 14, 15, and he's seeing competent men around him, and then he hears some dum-dum talking about this or that, he's like, that's stupid. Yeah, I'm not listening to that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, a big part of this, you mentioned the thing you did over the summer. Was that one of those things with fathers and sons, or was it just for dads or husbands? Talking
about no, that was so the interesting thing is so that was not for fathers and sons, but it actually is now. I actually brought my son to that event. The older one, 19? My older one, yeah. Just because I like bringing him to things like that. I'd love to actually comment on the rites of passage thing, because I've taken both of my older ones through rites of passage. So my older one and I went through the Squire, which is Bedros Keuilian's.
I know Bedros.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's 15-hour crucible.
Ray Cashcare.
Yeah, he was there, and Steve Eckert, the psychopath.
Ray's a lunatic.
Yeah, they
he
both
loves
are.
That shit.
Yeah, he does. Jessica met Ray last July when we were in Idaho, because I was speaking at Matt Schneider's event, because you probably know Matt. But anyway, like at the Squire, leadership and communication. So like I definitely got a big slice of humble pie at the Squire, and what I mean by that is, so I loved it, and so did my son. And it's 15 hours. If you look at the videos of it online, it looks like it's an absolutely impossible event. It's not. It's not hard to get through it. But the very last thing that my son and I went through was he had to go through an obstacle course blindfolded, and the only thing that was guiding him through that obstacle course was my voice.
Couldn't touch him or anything.
Couldn't touch him. Yeah. In that obstacle course, you had people swinging things, right, and trying to hit him. Bear traps, barbed wire, broken glass, like all kinds of stuff that he had to navigate. And this obstacle course was about the size of a football field. It's about 100 yards. And I had to help him navigate through it. So I'm standing in front of him and I'm talking him through it. And the reason I say I got a slice of humble pie was because I had a really good lesson in how unclear and how how clearly I actually communicated, which I wasn't. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So like he's blindfolded. He can hear my voice. And I'm like, all right. I was like, hey, he just got out of like a tunnel or something. And there was a bear trap and barbed wire right next to him. And I said, hey, stop. I was like, you have a bear trap right in front of you. And he goes, well, how far? Like, is it 10 feet? Is it 10 inches? Like, what is it? And I was like, well, it's right in front of you. He's like, well, what does that mean? I was like, it's about 5 paces in front of you. And he's like, okay. I was like, okay. So obviously I really need to guide him through. I was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 5 paces forward. And then I'm going to tell you to turn all the way to your left. So turn at 9 o'clock. We're going to walk 4 paces. Well, then the funny thing was he started walking and I'm like, oh shit. I was like, he's walking a lot bigger paces than 5. So by 3 paces, he was on us. I was like, stop. I was like, you can't go 2 more. I was like, now I need you to turn till 9 o'clock. So he turns to 9 o'clock. I was like, I need you to walk 4 paces that way, which he did. Okay, now turn back to 12 o'clock. And in between all this, I'm like, okay, turn right now, face forward. He's like, which way's forward? So it's like,
using the clock helps, by the way.
It does. It helps a ton.
That's why we do it.
But I'll tell you, like, it was really clear to me at how unclear I actually was, but I thought I was being clear. But yeah, I think one of the things that we could really, really brush up on, even if we think we're clear communicators as leaders, man, our communication might not be as nearly as clear as what we think it is. And that was a great lesson there.
Yeah, that's something I picked up in childhood, actually, reading a book called The Giver. Did you ever read that?
I don't know. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's like a dystopian society where there's one person in all of society that's the memory holder for them, right? Like everybody else doesn't remember, they're just not privy to the history of the civilization. And there's one person who's typically, depending on when the person gets older or something, there's a giver and a receiver. The giver gives all the information to the receiver, who's usually a young candidate of some sort. But one of the phrases they use a lot is precision of language, which I've always liked, especially being an autist myself. I hate impersonal pronouns. Like, they told me to come over here. That was my favorite thing in the military, actually. When somebody said they told me to do this, I'm like, who the fuck is they? Give me somebody's name and rank, or at least what they look like. Who's they? Did some like apparition tell you to come over here and get into my business, you idiot? But yeah, I think that's a hard thing to master, but a very important thing when you're dealing with close personal relationships is to not leave room for misinterpretation or ambiguity. Especially when you're talking to somebody whose emotional state might hang on what you say next. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, and I don't like pressure yourself to say the right thing all the time. Be patient enough to get your point right. Mm-hmm. Peterson talks about this all the time. It's one of the things he did when he used to do marriage counseling was, and there's a phrase for it, I can't remember what it's called, but if 2 people are in an impasse, he will make, like if you and I were arguing and just couldn't get on the same page, he would make me repeat your position back to you to your satisfaction. Like, I have to say exactly what you think, and you say, yes, that's exactly what I think, precisely what I think. And then maybe I can ask some questions. So you're saying this? Like, no, what I'm saying is this, right? And that's the process you go through. Well, this is something you should be doing daily, in my opinion, with the people that are close to you. There should be no room for error, right? Or not room for error. There should be no room for misinterpretation. There's no conversation I should have with my child or my woman where they go off into the ether and are thinking something that I don't believe, in my opinion. I think that's a mistake to let them out. This is like sit out there, because bad neural pathways form in those moments. Under high stress and anxiety, they create neural pathways that are triggers for reactions that aren't real, They're not representative of how I feel or the way I want them to feel about me, but I've created that by being impatient about it. I think, you know, that's something, just the ability to communicate is really difficult for people because they're uncomfortable with embarrassment and shame and failure and whatever else. It's like, there's some, what was it, Epictetus, I think, that said, if you want to improve, you have to be willing to be thought foolish. I think it goes something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I promise you're going to fail. So just put that on the board. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen. I promise you. The only thing you can do is succeed the next time and not make that mistake again. Now we're going to fuck that up too, obviously, but that's all you can really do. But that communication part is something, and I think all these, like we think of, the reason I brought that up is because when it comes to whatever you're doing, just your social environment, whether it's marriage and kids or your work life or your friends or whomever, the people that are important to you, we think of like trying to train on these individual skills one at a time, but that's not how it works, right? Like this is a social environment. So you're applying this skill. You're basically making a cocktail, and you're adding a little bit of this and a little bit of this to see until it gets right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it never gets right. That's the point. It's never done. The whole thing's not complete ever, and you shouldn't expect it to be. So you want to get it to a point where it just needs a dash of salt. That's what I tell people. Get it to a point where now you just little salt and I'm good to go, right? Just a little kick here and there and you're good to go, and that's a good place to be in life. But don't think that you're like, well, this week we're going to work on this thing, and then next week we're going to master this, and then we're going to put it all together. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know, it's unreasonable to think like that. And I think, again, the reason I bring this up is because nobody has a goal without a plan, and your plan should understand these things. The rite of passage is one of those things in life, like seeing how dad treats mom and all this other stuff, that are supposed to naturally teach you all these lessons. So now, thinking back as an adult to your childhood and the lessons that you didn't learn, you've got the opportunity now to teach these lessons without having to sit that child down, grab them by the face, and yell it to them. Mm-hmm. I can just show this motherfucker, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which is a very powerful thing to be able to do. Yeah. Because now they grow up and they don't have the problems you did.
That is so true. And I think that's probably one of the goals of every dad out there, man. Mm-hmm. They want to raise their kids without, I want my kids to have what I didn't have, and I don't want them to grow up with the demons that I have, right? Yep. Yeah.
And that's again, let's go back to the book. Give me the elevator pitch on the book. What are you trying to accomplish here?
So basically the book is, I mean, man, this is the way I've been pitching the book is this has been a decade of research. You know, it's been 1,400 podcast interviews. It's been 10 years of coaching men. It's been 20 years of me falling on my face. I've learned things from every podcast guest that's come on. I've learned things from every book I've read, every client that I've worked with, and basically have put it all into here in 4 parts, which is, like I said, is explaining the drift, which is, I think that first part will be hopefully eye-opening for guys, because I think guys really feel like if they're feeling anything like Lance, they feel like they're the only one. Like they're the only one on their own island. Like even when they talk to their quote unquote their buddies, right? You know, they talk about the same high level things. They're talking about sports and media and politics and kids and that kind of thing, and your wife, but everything can be answered with like a 1-word answer, right? So if you're feeling anything like what I've described in the drift, that's the first part, is to normalize that. And then the next 3 parts is really like, well, what do I then go do about it? And the thing that I really want men to embrace, like the whole thing with even marriage, right? Which is part number 2. Here's the crazy thing, and here's some statistics for you. So everybody knows the divorce rate's 50%. What most people don't know, though, is they don't know any statistics about people that actually stay together. So marriage is to stay together. And if you really look at the data, married couples are actually divided up into 3 camps, and they're pretty crazy equal. So it's like 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. So 1/3 of couples that actually stay together can actually identify their relationship as like, man, this is great. Like it's working. Things are going well. Like I love her. She loves me. Like we're good. And there's a common denominator with that first 1/3. And I'll get back to that in a second. The second 1/3 is probably more like Lance. It's kind of like the middle of the road, where it's more like nothing is severely broken, but we've settled. Like we've settled into this life of being like more like roommates, and we just sort of like react to life, and it's very stagnant. It feels kind of complacent. It feels very dry. There's not a whole lot of excitement. But nobody's going anywhere, right? There's no divorce that's on the horizon or anything like that. But we're just sort of settling. And then the final 1/3 of couples that stay together, they're emotionally divorced. They live under the same roof. They're two strangers, though. Chances are they probably have extracurricular relationships on the side. They don't. They might not sleep in the same bedrooms. And the only two reasons, the research that I've done is there's only two reasons. The two biggest reasons they stay together is it's too financially devastating for them to get divorced, or they have this perception of we got to stay together for the kids, and when the kids are out of here, we're out of here. So marriages in general, when you really look at it, like only about 11% of people that walk down the aisle can say like, man, this is really working. It's like a 90%. I wouldn't say failure rate, but a 90%, like it just doesn't feel good, right? So how can we help, men and married couples be better? Well, it's like even if a guy knew a woman's 3 basic needs are to feel seen, heard, and safe, and then to understand like, how do I then go fulfill those? But that's only half the recipe. Your wife has to know that your 3 needs are to feel respected, appreciated, and you need physical affection. Those are the 3 needs of a man. Men and women are completely different, creatures. And it's the woman's understanding of how do I best love the man, and the man of how do I best love her. Not how do I want to show it, but how does she receive it? How does he receive it? And those dynamics. So that's the married part. And then the parenting part is the cool easy button, I think, for men out there. And again, these things are simple. They're easy, or they're simple, not easy. But your kids actually have the exact same 3 needs as your wife. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or girl. It doesn't matter how old they are. Seen, heard, and safe. So the good news for us as men is we don't have to necessarily reinvent what it means or try to fulfill all these different needs. The 2 most important relationships in our life have the same 2 needs, have the same 3 needs. So, and it's really just understanding how to fulfill those. So in the parenting part of the book, I go into raising sons, raising daughters, creating environments of psychological safety where your kids are actually going to tell you all the darkest stuff, right? Where they don't feel the fear of like, bet dad's going to kick my ass when I get home, right? It's creating memories. It's creating rites of passage. I have rites of passage in the book as well. But that's really what the book encapsulates. It's all of these, in my opinion, unanswered questions that guys are like, we're scratching our heads being like, I'm not exactly sure what this looks like. And what I've tried to do is a decade of work and understanding has gone into this to help a man with that. Yeah.
And I'll tell you from experience, and maybe you guys know this from your experience as well, you may not find a specific answer to your question there, but you're going to find, I guess, creative jumping off points where you're going to think of something 100%. That works for you. That's typically how it works. So that's 100%. The way you should go into reading any book like this. Yeah. It's like, there's going to be a lesson in here, and maybe it's the specific one he gives me, or maybe it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Or it sparks a new idea.
I mean? It's something, it's going to be something like that. And yeah, we've been, shit, how long have we known each other? A couple of years? I don't even remember the last time.
I think it was
2021 maybe? Or 22?
It was 2023 that I came on The Citizen the first time,
Yeah, I've been watching your stuff for a while.
Same.
We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
Matt Boudreau.
Yeah.
Ryan Mickler. There's a lot of weirdos out there. We're going to meet a new one today. I think you're really going to like him, actually. Matt Enns.
You know what's so funny is I follow him on social as well, and then when you mentioned his name, I was like, I know who that is. I was like, I follow his stuff. I watch his stuff too.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
He is
very smart, very sharp. And then we got to get out of here. I got to go.
Yeah.
You've got to do another one. Actually, you got to do your show so you're welcome for using my studio. I'll send you an invoice for it. But ask. This is really. You mentioned that over gentle parenting stuff.
Yeah.
This is. It's going to be funny for you. Just ask Candace about the calming banana.
The calming banana?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, I'm giving you no context on this show. You're going to have to go watch The Dad Edge with Candace Horvath to understand what the hell I just said. Yeah, it's probably going to be a combination of making you laugh and be like, what the hell did you just say?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But we're going to get out of here. Tell everybody where they can find the book and where they can find all of your other stuff.
Yeah, so I always tell people start with the podcast. You can download the podcast everywhere. It's literally everywhere. 1,400 episodes, enough to keep you busy for a while.
I'll do it.
As far as the book goes, if you go to thedadedge.com/legendary book, I've got the pre-orders there for you. So if anybody wants to pre-order the book, I'm giving them access to, I have 2 courses, one on creating more patience. So for all my brothers out there like myself who you struggle with patience and a bad temper, I've got a course out there. I actually developed it 5 years ago. It's 45 minutes, 6 skills on how to be a more patient dad and more calm in the heat of chaos. And then the second course is creating extraordinary marriage. And in that course, I teach 11 skills on how to communicate better with your wife, how to create more intimacy, how to attract her back to you instead of you constantly feeling like you have to chase. Each one of those courses are $500, but I'm giving them away for free for the first 100 people that pre-order the book. And like I said, you can find it at thedadedge.com/legendary book.
Well, there you go. There you go. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Man.
Appreciate it, man.
Looking forward to, we're going to do a Drinker Bros. The Drinker Bros will probably come out before this, actually. So
Okay.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know anything about how this business operates.
That's all right. You just have to be on the mic. So that's all right.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Check out the Dad Edge, Larry Hagner. We'll get this. I'm going to order the book, but I'm not going to pre-order it because I don't want to take anybody's opportunity to get the classes. So I'll wait.
Okay.
Like a week or so.
How about if I just send you one? I'll just.
Oh yeah, you can do that too. I don't like getting stuff for free.
I'll just send you one.
But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.